Good Wednesday morning, and thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet, voice you know with the news you trust studio, sponsored by the Family Forest Carbon Program, where we help family forest owners get paid to improve the health of their woods. Well, outside, partly cloudy skies right now. It rained all day yesterday on our farm. It's not raining now. Temperature on the barn thermometer as we take a look at it, 49 degrees, but it is going to warm up into the mid to upper 70s today, depending on where you're at in the state, and looks like a much nicer, warmer, sunnier period as we go through the Mother's Day weekend. This quick calendar reminder, you can celebrate the 38th Annual Armed Forces Day with the Findlay Military Association May 15th through the 18th. This will take place at the Hancock County Fairgrounds. Ride a Huey helicopter, watch reenactment performances, check out military vehicles from all the eras and more. Visit www.findlaymilitarishow.org for a full schedule of events, sponsored by Ohio Logistics. Well, it's probably an understatement to say that the soils are wet right now, but let's take a look at what the temperatures have done in the last week. Checking in with Joel Penorwood.
It's time for this week's Buckeye Temp Tracker, brought to you by B&A Genetics. Real service, real results. More information at bagenetics.com. It's our weekly check-in of soil temperatures at 4 locations around the state, both in a corn stubble field as well as bean stubble field. Let's go through the numbers. In Morrow County, the corn stubble field we've been keeping track of this spring had a temperature reading yesterday of 59 degrees Fahrenheit. On the bean stubble field, 60 degrees, both down from last week's reading, as is the general trend this week. In Perry County, the temperature down a couple of degrees, both in corn and beans. Both corn and beans, 57 degrees each. Fayette County corn stubble, 55 degrees, down from last week's 68-degree reading. And Fayette County's bean field at 58 degrees, also down from last week's 68 degrees. Mercer County warming up with a temperature of 61 degrees, up from last week, the highest so far, also 61 degrees for the bean side. As we take a look at the general trends, yes, cooler across most of the readings from last week, but this being the 6th week of the Buckeye Temp Tracker, a nice steady trend upward overall. The full numbers online at ohioagdat.com today. Thanks to B&A Genetics, I'm Joel Penorwood reporting.
Thanks, Joel. Taking a look at your agricultural headlines, the Canadian government rejected claims by the only renewable diesel producer in Canada that U.S. producers were injuring their industry by dumping subsidized fuel across the northern border. Canada's first renewable diesel company, Tidewater Renewables Ltd., alleged in a complaint at the end of 2024 that the U.S. imports are hurting its business. The Canadian International Trade Tribunal disagreed. The Canadian International Trade Tribunal today determined that the evidence does not disclose a reasonable indication that the dumping and subsidizing of renewable diesel from the United States of America have caused injury or are threatening to cause injury to the domestic industry, the body said in its ruling. Therefore, the tribunal terminated its preliminary injury inquiry. Tidewater CEO Jeremy Baines said in a statement that despite the ruling, the company maintains that U.S. imports are hurting the Canadian industry. Our view remains that the facts support a finding that unfair trade practices by the United States have caused a flood of subsidized and dumped renewable diesel into Canada, Baines said. This flood of imports has significantly injured Tidewater, currently the sole Canadian producer of renewable diesel. The Canadian market for renewable diesel imports is estimated at more than $1.4 billion annually. Tidewater officials expressed confidence in a March news release that provisional duties would be imposed at the U.S.-Canadian border within 90 days. Tidewater said it anticipated duties valued between $1.89 and $3.03 per gallon of renewable diesel imported from the United States. The issuance of the tribunal's decision ends the investigation arising from complaints filed by the corporation with the Canadian Border Service Agency back on December 30th of last year, the Canadian government said. Now, the tribunal said it is expected to release its reasons for its decisions coming up on May the 23rd. Tidewater Renewable said it was, quote, carefully reviewing its options in response to the tribunal's decision with, quote, the support of its external trade law counsel. The company said it may decide to take legal action or to file an amended complaint with the Canadian government. In its original complaint, Tidewater said the results of an increase in the volume of dumped and subsidized imports from the U.S. The company suffered material injury, including lost market share, lost sales, price undercutting, price depression, reduced profitability and reduced cash flow, return on investment, and the ability to raise capital. Let's check in now with your Wednesday morning weather forecast brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com.
We've got a drier day trying to unfold over Ohio. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at your forecast update. Unfortunately, I cannot wave the all-clear flag on moisture just yet. I don't think it's a big deal today. I think your Wednesday turns out partly to mostly sunny and precipitation-free. The first time we can say a forecast like that in several days here statewide. However, I'm also watching the remains of a weather system exit out of the southern plains, moving through the mid and lower Mississippi River Valley, and I do believe the northern edge of this moisture is going to try and track through parts of Ohio through the day tomorrow. So I cannot rule out hit and miss of scattered showers for Thursday. Coverage probably about 60 to 70% of Ohio. We're talking a few hundredths to a few tenths, but the key here is we're not seeing a move right away into this highly evaporative and fast drying scenario. That's what this moisture is going to do. It's going to keep us from that. So Thursday, not a wash, but we're not going to be able to see a lot of drying there. We really start to turbocharge drying on Friday. Full sunshine, warm, dry. Well, it's not quite warm yet on Friday, but we're going to be warming through the weekend. Strong high pressure settles in for Sunday into Monday of next week, and the dry pattern goes pretty much through all of next week. I am seeing a few hints at moisture trying to back in out of Appalachia from some disturbances over that direction. I think it brings clouds more than anything else. We'll watch it at midweek, but I think we have a good chance of being in the field for all of next week. Our next frontal boundary, the next organized batch of moisture, comes next Saturday the 17th, sweeping through with a chance of half to 1 inch of moisture. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
Thanks, Ryan. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more after this.
Think biodiesel is just another fuel? Think again. Biodiesel is Ohio innovation on the move. Clean, green, and built to keep diesel engines running strong. It's an engine booster, a soybean supporter, and an environmental champion all in one. Every gallon reduces emissions, strengthens Ohio farms, and powers your ride. Drive with purpose. Choose biodiesel. Learn how at soyohio.org.
Taking a look at your agricultural headlines, the USDA will open a portal before the end of the month for farmers to apply for nearly $21 billion in aid for dealing with natural disasters over the past 2 years, Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins told senators yesterday. Rollins testified before a U.S. Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Agriculture to discuss plans for the fiscal year 2026 budget, which includes roughly $4.6 billion in cuts. Senators asked about a range of funding cuts, facilities in their own states, and the USDA's cancellation and freezing of programs in the first 3 months of the Trump administration. Now, also discussed was when USDA plans to open applications for roughly $20.5 billion in natural disaster aid passed by Congress back in December. Rollins repeatedly told lawmakers the USDA will announce applications for disaster aid in the coming weeks by the end of May. Now, passed quickly after Hurricane Helene hit last fall, the disaster aid package covers an array of natural disasters that hit agriculture in 2023 and 2024. Among the fund, $2 billion was set aside specifically for livestock producers. Assistance from the package could go to states in the form of block grants as well as direct compensation to farmers. Now, Rollins also told the subcommittee USDA has moved almost $8 billion under the Emergency Commodities Assistance Program, or ECAP, since opening the program in late March. A USDA dashboard for the program shows $7.3 billion has been paid to more than 472,000 farmers so far. And from what I've seen, you are following very well what we've laid out in that emergency assistance, said Senator John Hoeven from North Dakota. He's the chairman of the subcommittee. Rollins noted creating a program for natural disaster is a little more complicated than ECAP, which had prescribed details in the legislation on how payments would be distributed. It's a little more complicated because we do not have the specifics, she said. Now, Hoeven noted Congress expects the disaster payments to operate similar to the Wildfires and Hurricane Indemnity Program created back in 2017. The Biden administration later drafted a different disaster program, that being the Emergency Relief Program, which sparked complaints because the payment formula leaned heavily towards smaller producers. Now, Senator John Ossoff from Georgia told Rollins about farmers in his state who need those disaster payments to keep operating. He specifically cited examples from a pecan farmer and a cotton farmer. Rollins replied, "Within a matter of weeks, the portal will open on those grant applications. Now, when it comes to frozen funds and some of the staffing cuts, senators from both parties highlighted their concerns about the budget cuts at the USDA. We want to work with you to find savings, but we have to know we're still going to deliver that service that keeps those families in business, those farms and ranches going every single day to benefit every single American, Hoeven told Rollins. Senator Susan Collins from Maine, who chairs the Senate Appropriations Committee, said she wants more details on funding that remains frozen. Farmers, landowners, loggers, and natural resource businesses, quote, still have no clarity on what decisions will be made, she said. Rollins said the USDA began sorting through $20 billion in program funding and is now down to the final $5 billion frozen program dollars. Hoeven said it is important to ensure frontline FSA offices or employees remain in place to work with farmers and ranchers. On FSA county offices, Rollins said, it is not our plan to close any of those offices. She added, however, USDA wants to improve technology to be more efficient online with technical assistance down the line, but today we can't rip that rug out from underneath our farmers and ranchers. That remains a priority. Rollins also said she signed a memorandum recently that prevented certain frontline positions at the FSA, the Animal Plant and Health Inspection Service, and Forest Service firefighters from taking federal buyouts. Stay tuned. We'll be back to take a look at your markets after this. Whether you're in the fields or on the farm, creating a safer work environment has never been easier. BWC's safety consulting services are included with your policy premiums and offer training and education for everyone in your farming operation. It's always the right time to make safety a priority. Visit bwc.ohio.gov or call 1-800-644-6292. The Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation, here to help you work safely.
Get ready to start bidding on a massive variety of heavy equipment and vehicles in the Ritchie Brothers Great Lakes Regional Event happening May 14th and 15th. More than 3,700 items will cross the auction block during a one-of-a-kind sale, including everything from truck tractors, van trucks, and trailers to excavators, scrapers, and equipment for construction and landscaping. Registration for this unique unreserved auction is entirely free and open to the public. Visit rbauction.com to learn more. Again, that's rbauction.com.
Let's take a look at what's impacting our markets. Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. Phone 574-566-2113 for information on soybean marketing to LDC. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished mostly lower on the Tuesday trading session. Wheat was the only market that we saw significant gains, up anywhere from 3 to 6 cents across Chicago and KC markets. Spring wheat up just a little bit, penny or so overall. It was a day of very low volume and definitely a major lack of interest overall. Let's start on the weather side of things. Favorable weather across a large part of the Corn Belt. We'll be able to advance the spring planting again later this week on through next week after a slight pause in the eastern Corn Belt over the past few days. There may be a little bit of rain that tries to pop up in Ohio and eastern Indiana, southern Indiana, as we move through the Thursday time frame, but it doesn't look like it's a large-scale kind of event. Now, as we look into the weather's work in the marketplace, it appears as though that's been the predominant pressure on new crop soybeans and corn as of late. Meanwhile, old crop soybeans are down due to lack of fresh Chinese demand. That should not be a surprise. China has been gone from the marketplace for quite some time. But we're also hearing now China is leaving the market for even Brazilian soybeans. So that's probably the bigger story here as of late. Also, soy oil can't decide whether it's coming or going. We're seeing a lot of pushback and delays in decisions on the RVOs and the future of the 45Z program. So all of that is posing a little bit of a headline risk or a headline hurdle to get over. We're still hearing that there is going to be a new proposal for a new direction in the biofuels program, but it's going to take some time to get that from the expectation to reality stage overall. Yesterday, we're hearing brokers estimate managed money sold 3,200 contracts of corn, about 3,100 contracts of beans. They did buy some wheat. Now, as we take a look at other stories in the marketplace, again, it was mostly due to demand out of the U.S. that the prices were falling, but Brazil's crop size, at least on corn, sounds like it's getting a little bigger. I'm Ryan Martin.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, let's take a look at how trade is going in the overnight markets, brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. July corn is trading up 5 1/4 cents at $4.60 3/4. December new crop corn up 5 1/4 at $4.46 1/2. July soybeans trading up 12 1/2 cents at $10.53 3/4, with November new crop beans trading 13 cents higher at $10.32 1/4, and wheat for July trading 6 3/4 higher, $5.42 3/4. Thanks for joining us and have a great day, everyone. I'm Dusty Sonnenberg. This is the Ohio AgNet.